What is happening?
Well, that's a perfectly understandable question given
I'm an if. Get it? Imaginary friend? Our kids grew up, so we need new ones. You could save all of us.
All of who?
A young girl who discovers she can see everyone's imaginary friends, and what she does with this gift is the story behind If. John Krasinski is the director, writer, and also one of the stars of the movie, alongside Cailey Fleming and Ryan Reynolds. And they join me now.
You ready for this?
So, John, I feel like you deserve the Coolest Dad Award after learning that you made this movie for your children. How did they react when you told them what you were doing?
Well, thank you, by the way. I'll take that award anytime over most awards. That's amazing. I got to say, it's been an unbelievable experience to involve them in this movie, because I don't think they really knew exactly what I did. They couldn't see A Quiet Place. They couldn't watch Jack Ryan. They were actually still a little too young for The Office. So to be brought into this world, and I said right from the outset, they inspired me with this. So it almost felt like it was their movie that I happened to be doing. And listen, when you spend hours in a doorway watching these kids go into this magical world that as parents we are not invited into, it's so inspiring. And it's so inspiring to see that joy and that perspective on life.
Cailey, you are so good in this movie. You know, a lot of people will recognize you from your seasons on The Walking Dead. So how different was it for you going from a show like that to working on a movie like If?
Well, I feel like they were similar in some ways, but also complete opposites. You know, for Walking Dead, we had a lot of experience with visual effects, which we also did for If, but in a different way. So I had like a summer in between the last season of Walking Dead and filming If. So I kind of got to I got to go back home and hang out with my friends and swim and do all the summer things, and then jumped into If. They were both very different, but I loved both of them.
That is so nice to hear. And then you have one of our favorites, being a Canadian. We all just have to be in love with Ryan Reynolds. And I know you'd been talking to him for a few years about
it's law
this.
in Canada that you have to be in love with him.
It is law. It is. And anybody here can't say anything bad, or you go to a dark place. What was it like getting him on board, and how much did he love this idea?
Well, it's funny, 'cause I've been talking to him about doing something, because we are friendly. We have kids the same age. And it was one of those things where he was interested in working together. And I told him a little bit about an idea with Imaginary Friends, but it wasn't until the pandemic that I had that to do this about growing up and to have it have an emotional current. And as soon as he heard that, he jumped on board immediately, which I got to say was, of course, hugely helpful, but also emotionally helpful. You realize you're onto something if he's digging it.
Ryan was amazing. Everyone knows him as this hilarious guy, which he is. Obviously, you've seen that in all of his movies. But I think I've been lucky enough to know him, and he's so sweet. He is the biggest sweetheart. He has the biggest heart ever. And I think you really get to see that in his character, which is really special.
I agree. It was really nice to see how vulnerable he was. That's what I really took away from this movie. That was great. The cast is unreal. I know people are talking about this, but seriously, Steve Carell, Awkwafina, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Matt Damon, of course, Emily Blunt. I mean, the list goes on and on. What was it like just getting all these people together and you directing all of them? What was that process like?
It was insane. I mean, the truth is, I wrote the script. I was jotting down I'm a terrible artist, but I was making these little sketches of every If. And at the end of the day, my producing partner, Allison, and I put all the pictures up on the wall, and we just said, Dreamcast. Who would it be? I mean, who are our imaginary friend versions of these voices? And we chose everyone, and we got every single person to say yes. And I will say, as nice as they were probably just doing me a favor, they did it because the pitch of the movie. It was this idea of recapturing your childhood, how important it is to put something good out into the world. And they all mentioned that when they said yes. So I got very lucky. I've never had faster yeses, and I also know I will never have this good a cast again, ever.
Yes. All right, so you seem like you're a pro working with CG, but I just want to know, there are so many imaginary friends, and they're hilariously different animated characters. What's that like being on set? What was that whole experience like for you, talking to things that weren't there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was really nervous about that, actually, because I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what to expect. But John is literally the best director ever, and he wanted us to be as comfortable as possible. So for Blue, Blossom, and Lewis, we had actors because they're in the movie so much. The actors knew all of their lines. They studied those characters. They just completely became the characters for us. They were amazing. We could not have done it without them. I know I couldn't have. And then we had stuffed animals for some of them, or like puppets, and John would get behind those and like mess around with them to try and like feel it out and tell us what they were gonna do. And then sometimes we would have cardboard cutouts or pictures, but it was very rarely like a piece of tape or something, because that's not what he wanted. He wanted it to be very real. So I think we just got very lucky.
Well, listen, from A Quiet Place Part 2, you nailed the horror genre. Now you've got this beautiful fantasy, heartwarming movie. I honestly can't wait to see what you're going to direct next.
Thank you very much. I can't either.
Thank you so much.
And as a reminder, If opens in theaters this Friday.